The voice of Indiana County, WCCS, AM 1160, 101.1 FM, Indiana in the Morning, brought to you by First Commonwealth Bank. A reminder that our interviews are presented and protected by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Friday morning, Bob Pollock from the Indiana County Extension Office, back with us in the studio this morning. Had a good day yesterday?
Yes,
Okay.
we did.
I wanted to ask you, does your office have to deal with turkey farms during the year at all?
Not our particular
Okay.
office, yeah.
Never sure.
But there are some that do.
Okay. Big topic for this morning is...
What do you think?
I'm asking.
Oh, you're asking.
I'm asking you.
Well, we've just had Thanksgiving, so that kind of changes the seasons, and we're post-Thanksgiving, and now we're preparing for the next season, Christmas. And so people will start to be getting their trees and thinking about that and the other things that go along with that. So maybe we should talk about that.
Yeah, have you had any information on how the tree growing season went this year here throughout the area?
Yeah, it went pretty well.
Okay.
Yep. So there should be ample trees, and I think certain places in the country things are getting a little tighter, meaning the supplies are. You might have certain species that are getting a little tight in supply, but I think for the most part things should be pretty good shape.
Over the years, you talk about the different types of pine trees for the Christmas season. Has the popularity changed from one specific type of tree to another over the last 15 or 20 years?
Maybe not so much over the last 15 or 20. Okay. If we broaden that out a little longer over the last, 25 to 30 or so, yes. We used to really have a lot of Scotch pine. So the pines were kind of the king of the Christmas tree, and so that has really shifted from that species to the firs. And not, of course, you've got your Fraser fir is probably the premier one of that fir group. But Fraser, and then Douglas fir, they call it Douglas fir, but it's not a true fir, whereas the Fraser is a true fir. So fir is an F-I-R.
And they're a little bit softer needle, right?
Yes. Shorter.
That's the kind I like.
Yeah, so if like the Fraser fir, for example, shorter needle, rounded at the tip. So when you feel it, it's very soft, and it's short needled. So the trees tend to be a little bit more open looking. You can still get a fairly dense tree with those, but because of the needle arrangement and everything, they're a little bit more open, which gives you more spots to hang. And they've got good branch structure, good stiffer branches that allow you to hang ornaments on the tree easier. And then you get into other, and they're still, and Scotch pine had a little bit longer needles. They might have been 1.5, 1 3/4 inches long, but still had ample places to hang things. And of course, the care and the pruning will influence how tight or open a tree is also. So depending on what you're looking for, whether you want that really tightly sheared tree, maybe you're just going to put lights on it and minimal ornaments, so you don't need to hang very many things. But when you start to look at a tree, those are some of the things you want to think about. And then you can, when you're picking a fresh tree, you can go out and touch it and feel it and see how stiff the branches are or how loose the branches are. Douglas fir is another very popular tree. Recent years, we've had more issues with pests on those, diseases especially, that have limited. Some people have given up growing them because they're just so hard to care for, because some of the needle cast diseases that have affected those have made it challenging to grow. But that's also been a very popular tree. A little bit longer needles than the Fraser, although still soft, and the branches can be a little bit less stiff, so they might droop a little bit more. But
now I know some folks who have already put up their trees. even though we're only a day after Thanksgiving. Maybe there's some folks listening that this is the first time they put up a live tree in their house. Let's go over some of the steps and ways that they can keep that tree looking good and staying alive for as long as possible.
And that's another reason we've a lot of the popularity of the firs is because they just tend to hold up longer. So you get really. It's hard to dry out one of those trees, even if you have it up for a month. And I know growers that have put it up and not even watered them, just on purpose in their own houses, just to see how long they will last and retain those needles. So when you're picking trees, just make sure you get a good fresh tree. You can feel the needles. You can kind of just put your hand over a branch in the tree and just slide your hand out along that branch. And when doing that, you're looking to see that those needles hang on the branch.
Yeah, and you don't want any brown needles when you cut your tree too, right?
Yeah, and on the very interior part of the tree, because they're conifers, they will retain 4, maybe 5 years worth of needles that grew 4 or 5 years ago. Once we get past that, or if a tree's been under stress, then those innermost needles, those are the ones that naturally drop every year. And that's why when you look underneath a conifer, whether it be a spruce or a fir or a hemlock, any of those, you'll see needles on the ground, pines, because they shed those oldest complement of needles. The tree's only able to retain so much, and then it also gets denser and darker inside the tree, and that's another reason that those innermost needles will drop off. So that's natural. Mm-hmm. And we'll often see white pines in the fall, and occasionally they'll get really yellow on the inside, and you first think, oh, there's something wrong here, but it's just that they're doing that annual cycle of shedding their needles.
Still a good idea to cut a little bit off the bottom of the trunk?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep. Yeah, so if you're going out to a choose and cut and you're picking your tree and cutting it yourself, you're going to, and if it's not that long till you get home, an hour or two, that cut that you made there will be ample. If it's going to sit overnight or for a few days, then it's good to recut that right before you put it in your stand.
Okay, and of course, keep your stand with an ample supply of water. Is there anything you can put in the water to help keep the tree alive?
Just water.
You don't have
to?
Okay.
None, no additives, none of that stuff.
Okay.
Just water. That's what the tree absorbs naturally from the ground when the roots are still on the plant. Mm-hmm. And so the piping, the plumbing in the just underneath the trunk is where the water and nutrients do flow naturally, and so we want to leave that intact. Sometimes match your stand to your tree.
Right.
Sometimes we can get trunks will be broader at the bottom where you may have to cut more off, but try as much as possible to know what size your stand is and then try to match that tree to that stand. So if you need a little smaller tree, to make sure it will fit in there, because you don't want to shave the bark off the trunk to get it jammed down in the stand, because then you've removed the water absorbing plumbing that's inside and underneath the bark. So that's why we want to make a flush cut on the bottom. Then that'll absorb the water up through the tree like it naturally does, and you'll be in good shape.
And if you have to cut some branches off your tree to get it to the right size, you can use those branches for decorations around the house.
Yes.
Don't throw them away.
Yeah, no.
Right.
Yep, you can trim those and cut those and use those for greens around the house. Yeah. Definitely.
Now,
don't overcut that to begin with either. Measure how deep is your stand, because stands are they vary all over the place. So we have stands that have the bolts that tighten into the trunk, 4 bolts that go in there. We have stands, a lot of choose and cut places, and the lots around here may have drills, so they will drill your tree. So they have a special drill which drills up the bottom of the trunk, and then there's a stand that goes along with that. So it's as long as that drill bit goes in there vertically, you're good to pop that on the stand, and you're good to go.
Okay.
Those work very well.
Right.
Shake the trees.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to, and a lot of places do that. They'll have a little vibrating shaker. They'll put the tree on there, and any loose needles or and these trees are growing out in nature, so they can have have needles on the inside. And you get those shaken out, and then get it baled, and you're good to go. And baling it also makes it much easier to get it in the house too.
Right. Okay. Bob, thanks so much for the tree
You are
information.
quite welcome.
We'll keep that in mind as we get ready for that part of the season. And Bob will be with us again next Friday morning here on Indiana in the Morning. We are the voice of Indiana County, WCCS AM 1160, 101.1 FM, and we are brought to you by First Commonwealth Bank.